So, let me ask you this. If you were a member of the Knights Radiant, what order do you think you would belong to?
Man, that's so hard because I only know so very little of them.
I know.
You know, I feel like it's going to be cliche. I think I would just be a Windrunner
That's fair.
because there's something about flight that is liberating to me.
Absolutely. It's the best superpower, you know.
But I feel like I
every-
can't answer that fairly because I don't know of the other orders.
That's fair. I mean, where you are in your book journey, I agree. But I will say, I also, as somebody who's finished all the books, I was like, man, I gotta not be cliche. And I actually took the official poll.
Man.
And it's super in-depth, too. Like, it asks all these, like, super, like, psychological questions. I wouldn't take it yet because, obviously, you don't know enough about all the orders. And
I want to.
But I took it, and it, like, breaks it down by, like, which ones, like, all the way down, all the orders, and it's, like, which ones you most align with. And I was a Windrunner, like, completely. And I was like, well, I guess, like, me trying to fight against it, I fed into it.
Kaladin, at least what Syl represents in regard to the oaths, like protecting others, being a defender of your fellow human. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely. He's the capital H hero in the story. You know,
Yeah.
he's the one who is truth and righteousness and all the good things. You
I
know?
feel that if I took the test, that's what it'd be. However, I don't know too much about Shalon's order, but there's something about Shalon's abilities that make me... There's some definite character flaws about Shalon I don't really like, but I enjoy her as a character. But her abilities are so cool. The fact that she can change into different forms makes her so dangerous and so intriguing. I can see her being a villain. The fact that you can just kind of change who you are and be someone else is also liberating in a sense because you can kind of do whatever you want. And I don't know the extent of how much she can change herself as her powers grow, but her abilities are very interesting to me. But yeah, I definitely think I'd be a Windrunner for sure. The
That's
ability
fair.
to just kind of like leap and fly like over spans and distances is probably exhilarating. It's probably the only thing I can describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Plus, if you're part of Shalon's order, you have to talk about uncomfortable truths about your own inner self.
I'm so good with that. I am so good with introspection. I may not be expressive with the things that are wrong with me, but I'm very much aware.
That's
I'm
fair.
very honest with myself.
fair.
I know my fault.
That's fair.
And if I'm asked, I will answer truthfully. Like, yeah, I definitely messed that up. Yeah.
What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander. You are plugged into the Nerd Companion.
What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander here from the Nerd Companion coming at you with another special episode. Every episode is special, but we're going to be going over book 2 from the Stormlight archives, Words of Radiance. I'm here joined with my buddy Jared.
Hey.
He is my fantasy scholar.
I try.
He is a herald. If one could say he's one of the heralds that has shown me the magic of Stormlight, and I'm very thankful. This series is so good.
So good. It's so good because Sanderson is like, it's almost plain spoken in a way without sacrificing any of the in-depth, crunchy world building
Right.
that like great fantasy has. And it's like a merging of the best world. That's why I think it's the best modern fantasy series.
Yeah, I think he's very talented with how he conveys and how he introduces world building, because in fantasy, I feel like a lot of people get daunted by reading fantasy because you get several pages of world building. It's much easier to digest, because they are writing it in a more modern language or like how we speak,
I get what you're saying, because with that type of writing style, it's super enjoyable when it catches you at the right time.
Right.
Because it makes it like the ideas are much more ephemeral in a way, and what they're trying to convey. And like when it catches you in that perfect like state, it's just like, oh man, I can feel everything, what's happening with the characters in the book. I'm definitely like, every time a new Stormlight Archive book came out, I devoured it in like a week. I'm definitely not.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I'm not. I have to know it all as soon as it comes out. When obviously book 5 came out late last year, and it was just as soon as I could.
You had to, because you were going to get,
Yeah.
I'm always scared of spoilers. So it's like, when a book comes out and you're like, fuck, I got to stay away from the internet. I have to stay away from everything and I have to finish it because everything is, especially if you're on, social media, like your algorithms are there and it's just going to, oh no, I didn't see that. Oh my God, why did I look that? Or, but Sanderson does a very good job with conveying his imagery and describing the laws and mechanics of the heralds and how the world is and how everything works. And he does it such a good job because he introduces it with dialogue. It's not so much you're reading a textbook. You get bits and pieces of it while characters are interacting with each other, and it doesn't seem so daunting. And I would say the only drawback about that is that you're still left with like an air of mystery of like how things happen, because there will be a conversation later that sheds light on why that was. But it's much more easy to take in, especially if you're like a new reader to fantasy or just someone who gets bogged down with world building. I feel like Sanderson does such a good job. I don't want to say baby feeding you it, but it just doesn't feel so overwhelming whenever it's being described, because you're getting it in like these little small doses.
He does a great job with his world building and all of the information that's given to you over these books. You can engage with it as much or as little as you want. There are some people who read these books and all they care about are the characters on the page that are presented and the main plot lines. And then there's some that read a little bit more. I start make connections of, this excerpt, at the beginning of this chapter that's referencing something. Oh, I now get what that means, a couple
those
books
are
later.
So rewarding.
Yeah, it's when you get them, they're awesome. And then there's some that I'm one of those people, not only do I want to read all of it and understand it, but then also I have to go to like the wiki article afterwards and be like, did I read this right? Afterwards.
I do that too.
Yeah, so it just depends on, but the great thing is, it's like either way, the books can be engaging. You're not missing anything. Even obviously Sanderson has an entire Cosmere built around these books, Mistborn series, all of them are interconnected in ways. Characters cross over into different books and things like that a little bit.
They do, don't they?
They absolutely do. Well, Wit famously is the one that everyone knows because he's in every series. But there are others as well that I won't spoil and say which are which. But there are some that if you're on the lookout for them, you can tell that person's acting differently than anybody else that I've met so far. But yeah. But the great thing is, if you don't catch some of those, it doesn't detract from the story he's telling on this world with this. It just adds more flavor to it.
He just does. It's just his prose is good. He's very direct.
Mm-hmm.
He introduces all the laws and mechanics through interesting dialogue as they're speaking with somebody, and it's almost as if he does it on purpose, because you'll be introduced to a character who doesn't understand some things, and it's like then you have another a character who does know how like the laws work, and they're explaining it to him like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So he does it in a tasteful way where it doesn't feel like, well, that just seems like he was like that was put in just specifically for me. But it's just really good, and that's why I enjoy Sanderson. And probably after I finish these 5 books, I'm probably going to end up reading Mistborn. I think I'm going to be a big Sanderson fan.
I think you will too. And for me, this book, specifically Words of Radiance, the second book in the series, is, I think, the best of his writing. I think it combines everything that we love about the writing in this book.
Well, let's get into it. Oh, yeah. So for me, whenever I was reading the book, a couple of people told me that every book gets better and better. And I remember reading this book and getting frustrated with this book specifically. And some of my gripes, before I go into it, I want to say that on a scale from 0 to 10, we can do like a quick rating. I'm going to give it a solid 7.5, 10, which is a solid score. I hardly give anything a 10. My favorite book of any series, I didn't even give it a 10. I gave it like a 9, because there's always going to be like
small quibbles here.
Yes. Yeah. To me, I felt every character chapter that they went into, they were building up to something and then they would let off. I felt I was just getting teased with every chapter, which I guess might have worked, because I was trying to like read and read. But it was everything that you got at the end of the book was so rewarding and made everything fall into place. But before getting there, I just remember feeling like, we're right there. Like, why are we not doing this?
So I will say Sanderson does have a specific writing style with these books. Every book kind of has that, where it's like a ball rolling down a hill that's slowly picking up momentum, where it's like, all right, I've learned a little more and now it's getting more exciting. And you're right, there are like moments when you feel like, oh man, I just want to know, and it's not giving it to you.
Yeah.
And then it just
Or
like
see something play out.
suddenly the hill gets steeper at the very end in like the last, fifth of the book, and it's like, oh, we're off and rolling now. Now it's just not like I'm learning all these things and I'm like all this action's happening and all these
Fire
like
hydrant.
yeah, and it's just and that's a hallmark. He does that in all the books are like that. So I'm just getting you prepared for like this isn't going to stop anytime soon.
No, that's fine. But see, book 3, I feel like is pretty good because we're getting. I won't get into it, but book 3, I feel like the pacing is a little better.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have to get into it.
Well, I think the important thing to also point out with these books is because each book has a character that it focuses on in a way. Now, focus is like a strong word. Feel like now in these first 2 books, there's a little bit more of like, okay, the first book is Kaladin's book. The second book is more kind of like Shalon's book. And then like it kind of gets there. But as the series goes on and more characters have more importance in the story and things, they get a lot of time to shine, even if the flashbacks, chapters in each book, because every book has a flashback.
The flashbacks chapters are so good.
They're amazing. But like I feel like your enjoyment of each of the 5 books so far are based off of whose flashback am I getting and do I enjoy that character as much as one of the other characters.
I can't say there's not a character I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
Even the unpopular Shalon that everyone seems to hate. Like she has some character flaws that I find annoying. But she's very interesting.
I've had an up and down journey with Shalon throughout the series. I liked her and then liked her even more in this book. And then like 3rd and 4th book, like I was like, oh man, like there's some stuff that like bugged me and stuff. But I will tell you, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for her as far as like,
for
her
sure.
character. Like what that light is, not going to say anything about that. But I'm saying as far as like a character that's interesting to be with and things like that, it all like kind of like comes together and stuff like that for her as a character, where you're like, oh, this is a satisfying like conclusion of where we are. So it's good there because I've definitely I get the gripes with her and things like that. But the other thing is the interesting thing about all of these characters and the way he's built his world is that all these main characters, because they're knights, radiant and things like that, and they have flaws psychologically, it also kind of it can be interesting because, like, for instance, Kaladin, as we know, has depression issues, right? So
go into that. Let's do that. Whenever I started this book, Jared had made it aware to me that all of these characters are going through a different, a psychiatric diagnosis. So elaborate on that.
So
which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, nothing is ever explicitly said because obviously you're in a world that doesn't have modern medicine, right?
What?
Yeah, I know, right? So nothing is explicitly said where it's like nobody clinically diagnosed, but
just you.
Yeah, but through the writing and it becomes more and more apparent as they go along that everybody has their flaws on different ways, and their actual real psychological flaws. And like there are lines in these books that are said sometimes by the Spren themselves that will tell them it's like, no, the Knights Radiant were broken in a way because they had to be to let the power into them in a way.
Right.
And so what they're talking about is literally like mental like flaws, and it depends on the characters. Like I said, Kaladin is...
So start with Kaladin.
Kaladin's the most obvious one. He has clinical depression, obviously in a world where there's no way to treat it. And so like all his things about how he gets sad during the weeping, which is the time when the rains are like just like a drizzle. Is constant,
it's like
for
Seattle.
like a month. Yeah, basically Seattle weather. And so there's no like thunderstorm or anything like that. And he feels, like depressed around it for a number of reasons, but just like gray, gloomy skies make him sadder. And because he has depression, it hits him harder than it does most people. He obviously, in the first book, when he's with Bridge 4, has moments where he contemplates suicide and things like that. And so this is a thing that like you also realize as it's going on, and as you realize it's literally a clinical diagnosis, it means he's not just going through a hard time. He's always going to have this. Like right. Kaladin will always be depressed because there's no cure for depression, especially in like a world where there's no way to mitigate any of the symptoms because you don't have any medicine to do it. So he has to fight through it.
But the burden that he has to carry on top of that.
Exactly. So it's a combination of obviously their circumstances and what their characters are put through and the hardships they're put through, but just on top of that, they're going to hit him harder because of his depression and his character, like, and how much he clings to people and how much he feels responsible. It like,
So he has attachment issues.
he has attachment issues, and
Just kidding.
yeah, but obviously because of that, when like, you know, characters that are close to him die, it hits him harder. You know, when his brother died and things like that, it almost broke him, you know, and like that's just something he has to deal with and will be dealing with. There are other characters, Shalon, for instance,
Shalon.
who, why I get why people have like problems with her is because the other thing you got to remember is when you're writing in this perspective from the character's perspective, and they have a mental disorder that you don't have, like I don't have it because she has some type of personality disorder. All right. She literally has like a multiple personality, like thing. I'm not a I'm not a doctor. I mean, you know, we're in the medical field, so.
We are not trained psychiatrists.
We are not.
We are not offering advice. We are not.
No.
Just so we're clear,
Yeah.
if you relate to Shalon, we're not telling you that you have split personality or whatever the clinical diagnosis is.
And I mean, all these characters go through relatable things, but clearly, like when you're in her character's perspective and why some people can have problems with it, is because she's literally, it's from a perspective that's impossible for a normal, healthy person to not have. If you don't have like some type of like disorder involved like that, it's hard to get to completely understand that mindset. And, you know, she's obviously somebody that's even like, depression is like something that it's a little easier, I think, for people to relate to in a way, because A, it's more common, and B, everybody feels sad sometimes. And so like having basically like a super sadness, you know, in a way, which, you know, it's a terrible way to describe a clinical depression, you know, like in layman's terms to like, you know, anybody that's, you know, they can relate to that. This is a much harder thing for people to put their mind in. So I think that's why it's harder for them to connect with in a way. Not all of them are specifically, like Dalinar doesn't really have like a specific clinical diagnosis, but he does have obviously alcoholism and rage issues that he's dealt with through most of his life.
So in the first book, whenever you had told me about the psych stuff, I was thinking, oh man, he's got like Alzheimer's, or he's like getting early onset. No, not so much Alzheimer's.
Yeah, because of the visions,
but he was
right?
like having hallucinations and stuff like that. But definitely losing your stuff.
Yeah, a little bait and switch there. Oh no, that was actually all magical stuff.
Okay, yeah, that was you were actually
yeah, no, it was real. Yeah, your issues are different.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that you noticed any?
Yes, but they're people I can't talk to you about yet.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So basically, this book picks up right after book one, immediately, like day after, probably hours after. You get the grand finale that Sadius, however you pronounce it, has betrayed Dalinar and left them for dead on the last assault. And Sadius has left them for dead. Kaladin Bridge 4 was one of the remaining bridge teams that was lugging behind. Somehow talked his way into staying despite the orders that were given to him by the bright-eyed bastard that was telling him to come back. They go back, rescue him, and Dalinar basically gives up his shard blade to Sadius to essentially buy that bridge crew, which is
not just that bridge crew. He bought all the bridge crews.
Oh, he did, yeah. Mm-hmm. So he bought all the bridge crews, and that is really important to know because the value behind these shard weapons and the shard plate is worth more than a kingdom.
Yeah,
because of what you can achieve with these, you know, magical, you know, weapons.
Exactly.
You can wage wars by yourself that would otherwise take an army to accomplish.
Exactly. It's a combination of status and just military might that if you have the combo of plate and blade, especially if you're a Bright Lord, you know, a high prince like Sadius is, who doesn't have their own full set. It's also kind of like, how can you stand and match yourself to the other high princes in this very dog-eat-dog world of the Alethi, where, you know, military prowess is everything, and like being, you know, a consummate general, you know, in society's face, you know, and things like that. With somebody like that, it's for him to be given that, it's such a huge, like, of course he's going to take it, you know. He's like, these guys are just like slaves that I considered literally cannon fodder. Like in the first book, that's one of the big revelations, is they're not even worth, like, there's no point in saving them. Yeah, they're entirely expendable. And so he's like, you want to give me one of the most valuable objects, if not the most valuable object that you can give another person.
Because he knows he'll just get more Bridgemen.
Exactly.
Like, he's not worried about it. He's like, okay, whatever.
Exactly. So big thing. And for Kaladin, it also shows, because obviously Kaladin does not trust Light Eyes at all because of his past. And so for another Light Eyes to give up something, it's gone against everything that he's believed that
Right.
Light Eyes are up until that point.
Right. So you're basically, Kaladin has, even though he still has his discrimination against Light Eyes, he is a lot more trusting with Dalinar after this deal is made. He gives Kaladin and the bridge crew a big responsibility and basically says, like, you don't have to be a part of the bridge crew. You actually can go back home. You can stay. You can do whatever you want. You're free men, despite, you know, the brand that's on y'all's head. And they don't go home because of the relationships that they formed under these brutal circumstances that they were put through.
They feel a brotherhood amongst themselves. And also now, as Kaladin, like, is leading them, feels kind of beholden to Dalinar in a way. And he asked them to basically, hey, I want you to basically be the new bodyguards for my family, you know, for the High King, who's obviously his nephew, and like for the, you know, me and my sons and everybody, you know, close to me, because now we've been betrayed and everything's going to get, you know, tensions are going to ramp up in the war camps.
Yeah.
And so he basically is like, Kaladin and the Bridge Four, I want you to train them, and they're going to be our bodyguards. They're going to be our new bodyguards.
And so that's essentially how the second book kind of starts off. And we'll kind of just hit generally how the story plays out without going into too much spoilers, and then we'll kind of talk about our favorite things with the book. But yeah, so essentially the story takes place with them basically adapting to their new roles with the King's personal guard, Dalinar's personal guard, and what that means with adjusting and getting, I guess, more associated with Bright Eyes and the higher lords of the encampment and stuff. And you really start to see the political movements against Dalinar and against Sadeas and how Adolin gets involved. But I would say the way that everything plays out with, you know, Shalon coming in, and Shalon ends up making her way there.
Yeah, we should point out at the end of the first book, Shalon, like after she's revealed everything to Jasna, her, you know, as her ward, that, hey, she came clean and said, hey, I was trying to trick you and steal your soulcaster. And then Jasna kind of reveals, oh, well, actually the soulcaster is fake. I've been able to soulcast without a soulcaster, which should not be possible. And, oh, by the way, all of our slaves that like we've had for these many years, these Parshmen that we've had, the only ones that seem to be different are the ones we're fighting on these shattered plains. Basically consider them almost a different species than the dull Parshmen that basically carry our bags.
Sleeper
and things
cells.
like that. Turns out, they're the Voidbringers that we've been worried about this whole time.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been researching, and now I need you to help me stop it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go and meet back up with my uncle back on the shattered plains and formulate a plan to stop these Voidbringers from returning.
Yeah. So Shalon's betrothed to Adolin if they both agree, but that's the deal for the protection that her family might need back in
Jasna basically offers up. I forgot to mention that, yes, at the end of the book, Jasna's like, okay, I'll also solve your family problems that you have by wedding you to one of the highest lords in the land.
Which leads me to believe that I don't think she was ever going to get rid of. I don't think she was ever going to get rid of Shalon. I think that she knew exactly who she was. She knew exactly her potential. And despite saying that, oh, you can go, I don't think she was going to let
Absolutely. They understand each other's character. And like Jasna, you know, while she can be ruthless and things like that, she's not a cold-hearted person necessarily.
I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, she can be. She can be, obviously.
Unless something's revealed later.
Yeah.
Although she does have a discussion with her current Spren in book 3 that might reveal that she might have a softer side. But
she does. She cares about her
it.
family, definitely. I mean, we also get that in the prologue of this book, which is from Jasna's perspective at her father's party when he's assassinated.
Yeah. Was that in the beginning of book 2?
Yeah, that's the
interesting perspective in book 2. I thought was pretty cool. So that's basically like setting up the story. The characters that were separated are now coming together, and now we're having them all kind of collide and make sure that we're all on the same page. They're all going to kind of work towards a common goal. And at this point, if you haven't read the book, I would say that it is a must read. If you get bogged down, just keep reading. The ending of that book solidifies everything that was going on and all that was going on in the book that I had.
It's very interesting that you had this, because like I said, and it's obviously personal perspective, I know many people who've read these books have different like favorites and which books like really resonate with them the most. This is the number one for me. This is the one that I wanted to like talk about the most, because for me, this is like the book that has none of those problems to me. At no point when I read this for the first time did I ever be like get frustrated with it or anything like that. It was like, this is exactly what I wanted. This is the character growth I wanted. This is like the world building I wanted. This is how I wanted it to expand the story. And so the whole time it just felt like an unending, like perfect roller coaster of like everything that I wanted.
No, it was a very good book. I got to see a lot of Adolin in this book that when I read book one, I didn't really care for Alien too much. I thought he was arrogant, but I know in my heart that usually when I read books, I always know that the arrogant person that's in the beginning of the book is always the character that I end up loving the most, because there's some of my best friends in life have always been people that have like rubbed me the wrong way when I first met them. And then the more I got to know them, I was like, oh no, you're like actually like a really cool person. And I know that for me, I come off as arrogant. I feel like I can give that vibe. So, but I feel like I'm genuinely a really good person. I just feel like my personality can be much. So I know that when I'm reading about a character that seems like a lot, I know that there's probably something what they're expressing, or there's something behind that they are vulnerable about. And I feel like I got to know Adolin a lot more in this book, and I was like, you know what?
He has a lot more
really good
chapters from his perspective, and you get to know him a lot more. And said it does seem he's a bit of a foppish prince, you know, with a heart of gold under there, but still kind of a shallow character.
He's
and
my Jamie.
You really dig into it here. Yeah, where it's like, oh man, Aelin's awesome.
Like he's a good dude.
He's the Labrador. He's the friendly dog. I love him so much.
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely a must read. The ending has a huge climax that I was just like, wow, we really went that far.
Yeah, all the books have great climaxes, but this is like up there. This is really up there.
I was like, wow, like I can't believe that we ascended to this level of intensity of an interaction between several people. But so yeah, that was the spoiler-free section of it. Highly recommend this book. From this point forward, we are going to be talking about spoilers. So if you haven't read it, go ahead and read the book, come back in and listen to the rest and get our thoughts on some more of the specifics where we'll be talking about spoilers. Hope you guys enjoy. So I was really surprised that Jasna died immediately.
Very early on, right? Very early on,
so abruptly.
Like I think it's because it's
way to come into the spoilers.
The book is split in, besides the interludes, split into 5 parts, I believe. You know, besides the prologue and epilogue, interludes, and then like you have like part 1, part 2, and stuff. And I think she dies either at the end of part 1 or at the beginning of part 2. I think it's in the part. No,
it's like in the very beginning, like it's within the first 10 chapters of the book.
Shalon and her are on a ship, like headed to like take the fastest route to the Shattered Plains, and like while they're on there,
fastest is not the safest.
No, yeah. Well, they're on there, and then suddenly out of nowhere, it's like, oh, there's assassins on the boat. Oh, Jason's dead.
Where did they come from?
I have to soul cast the entire boat into water, you know, or fire. I can't remember what she soul casted into. An escape.
She just seems to grow so much without any explanation. Because that was one thing about the book where I kind of had struggles with, because there was a chapter that for the soul casting of the ship, there was no evidence of like any sort of like mental training or inner dialogue that she could do this, and all of a sudden she just does it. And I'm like, how did you know you could even do that?
So here's what I'll say. First off, you got to remember there was a decent amount of time that she underwent education under Jasna, so she learned the basics of soul casting. You know, also because she wanted a soulcaster at the time. So she studied that, because remember, like when they're studying, it's not like seeing every moment that they spent together. So more of the dull stuff, you know, they kind of like wrote out. The other thing though is you are correct about the thing. And I can say this because it says it in the book with her flashbacks that yes, she has had a shard blade since she was a little girl. You know, so
is that talked about in the second?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, because remember, it has her flashbacks, and then in the last flashback, or it's not really a flashback.
I don't know why I didn't catch that.
Yeah, at the end, she has a conversation with Pattern, her cryptic Sprin, that, hey, you know, like you have to reveal truths to progress your order, and she reveals the truth that she killed her mother with a shard blade that she manifested.
Is it? So to me, her Sprin, I feel like the Sprins are interesting because they all have their unique, like Shalon Sprin. Every time I picture Shalon Sprin, I imagine this like little emo kid.
He's the best.
He's like very like he's not sure, like he's very apprehensive. He's going, I'm not sure if we should be doing that.
So I would say actually, like if you're thinking of that,
Like
Lift Sprin is a little more like that. I would say Lift,
I
one of
haven't
the
gotten
interlude characters in book 2, where she's the girl who like is breaking into that palace and eats food a lot.
Yeah.
And he's like constantly like allows her to light weave, which is the, you know, all the illusions that she does. And then she also can soul cast. Because this is a good point. You're far enough in the books where I can tell you this. So there are the 10 Radiant Knights Radiant Orders, okay? Each of them has 2 surges that they command, all right? And those surges are each shared in a way. So like imagine a wheel, right? All right, so she is a light weaver. So she has the surge of illumination, which allows her to make her illusions, and the soul casting surge, where she can soul cast without a soul caster, right? Then Jasna's order would be right next to hers, where she also can soul cast, because we know Jasna can soul cast without a soul caster. And then she has a different surge. She doesn't have the light weaving surge where she can make illusions. She has a different surge. So that's how it goes around the thing. So each one shares a surge with the ones next to it. So if like Shalon is here, right, and she has these 2 surges, the one next to her has one of those surges and then a different surge. The one on the other side of her on this wheel has light weaving and then a different surge, but doesn't have soul casting. So they always share these surges amongst different orders, while each of them, the pair of surges that they have is their own unique pairing.
Okay, so can you answer this? If we're imagining as to your image or your description of these surges are like spokes on a wheel, I guess. Is it crazy to think that the center of the wheel is something that giving power to all of them?
Well, there is something giving power to all of them, but there is no central order. If that's what you're saying. All the Knights Radiants are on the outside of this ring. This is literally a graphic of it. If you buy a hard copy of one of the books, like for instance, if you had bought the 3rd book and the hard copy, on the slipcover, like there's a picture of this on there and how they all connect. You can look it up. Like if you just Googled Knights Radiant, probably one of the first images that would pop up on Google Images is like the symbol for all the Radiants that are arrayed in this wheel, and it shows how they're connected. So like that also means that Kaladin's order, you know, who has 2 surges of their own, there are 2 orders next to them that share one of the surges with them.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought it was so crazy that she was just getting all these abilities. I'm like, how is like she just seems so advanced, yet like she just seems to understand her abilities so well.
There is an instinctual thing with the Knights Radiant where they also, as they progress their ideals and say their ideals and kind of level up as they say more ideals, they get more access to their powers, and there is an instinctual level of it. As you see at the end of the book, Kaladin didn't need to know how to fly. He just started flying after it's because it's a combination of why couldn't he do that before?
That escalated so quickly.
It does. But but it makes sense in this power scheme of the world because it's an intrinsic thing that's a part of you, because this bond that you have with your Sprin literally gives you these powers. And like as you progress your ideals, and each Knights Radiant has different ideals. As we've seen in this book, Shalon, she doesn't have traditional ideals. She speaks truths about herself to her Sprin out loud, and when she says these fundamental truths about herself and says them out loud, she progresses her powers. Kaladin is the more traditional. There are ideals, and like they're different for each person. So even another Windrunner, if there was another Windrunner, wouldn't say the exact same ideals that Kaladin would say. Some of them might be the same, and every Knights Radiant has the same first ideal, which is the life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. That's the first ideal for all Knights Radiants. After that, it's specific to each order how they progress. Even the number of ideals that they have might be different. Some might only have like 3 ideals or 4. Some might have 6 or 7, depending on what their ideals are and what they're doing to. Each order deals with a different, like, you know, a fundamental, like how to view the world, you know, like obviously Kaladin is about like honor and things like that, while Shalon is more about the truths of the world and like understanding the world and understanding yourself.
So each journey is different.
Exactly. Journey before destination, man.
That's right, man. It's funny because I was telling Carson, he was like, "Man, you done with book 3?" I was like, "No, I want to hurry up and get through it because I want to be able to talk about it." And I was like, "The journey before destination."
That's always the way to look at it, right? That's the way to look at it. That's what you can always say to yourself if you ever get a moment in the books where you get frustrated. You're like, no, this all it matters.
It all matters.
It all matters. It matters for not only for like, understanding the ending of the book that I'm reading currently, but it'll matter later, and it'll also matter to understand your characters better.
And it's almost like I was humbly reminded at the end of book 2. I was like, journey before destination.
Absolutely.
It was all there for a reason. So yeah, the Big Daddy Dalinar.
Big Daddy Dalinar. Big Daddy.
Big Daddy with the firm hand.
Oh, man.
The way that he tries to govern it's like he knows it's about to be a big like circus in regard to how he's about to kind of handle it. Cause he's like, nope, we're going to basically set up duels and you're going to win shards. We're going to get all these shards and then we're going to divvy it out and give it out based off of merit and honor because all this is horse shit the way that this is going. He's had enough with all the bickering and all of the conniving acts and everyone's own personal interest getting before the kingdom. And he basically is just like, Adolin, I'm going to let you loose. You wanted to get loose. Like go out there and be your amazing, flamboyant, colorful self and just wreck shop on everybody.
And that's what he does.
And that's what he does.
Oh man, there's so many good duels.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the best.
And what I found interesting is because in the first book, it portrays Adolin as this arrogant. He's arrogant, but he's a good dude. But they portray him as almost he's not smart or doesn't have wisdom, but he does because the way that he goes about winning these shards, he's aware that everyone knows he is the shit. And the way that he's like, okay, I've got to make this duel. He's got to sell it. Exactly. He's got to sell it, he's having a hard time because otherwise no one's going to want to challenge him.
He has to make himself seem more like the foppish, flamboyant guy that he can sometimes be and like less of the hardened duelist that literally like in the Rosharan or in the Alethi religion, he's chosen dueling as like his main focus, not warfare and stuff like that. Although he's very good at warfare too, but like he is a duelist. He wants one-on-one combat.
He wants to be a celebrity. He like
in a way,
like he wants to be like.
That's the great thing about Adolin though, is because like he doesn't do it so people will praise him. He just loves it.
He loves
the sport of it so much, and he loves his family too and wants to make them proud and wants to protect them. And he's like, this is the best way I can do it. I am the best duelist. I will duel to keep my family safe.
And it's so weird because Dalinar is, and you get a little hints of it in the third book, but Dalinar, it's not really too much of a spoiler, but Dalinar, he goes through like a little backstory. As amazing warrior as he is, he does not like dueling.
No, he doesn't.
He loves war. He likes being a soldier. And it's because they both love to fight. They love the thrill that they get, but they get it in such different ways.
Exactly.
But they're so good at both. And I just thought it was, funny how Dalinar prefers to, fight with honor to protect the kingdom and, secure more.
It's how Dalinar also realizes how proud and how much he thinks that Adolin. He's dead, so I don't know if he got off that easy.
No, he was so quick.
Dead.
No, it was quick. He deserved so much worse.
Thing about it is like it was out of nowhere. It's just like, and it's from a character you didn't expect it to come from. Like Adolin.
It was the one I wanted it to happen. It was the one that I was like,
but
fuck that.
even though, because I was the same way, you're like, oh man, I wish Adolin would just be able to take this guy out. And you thought if it was going to happen, it was going to happen in like an epic dueling arena or during a battle or something where it was like Adolin proving that he is the duelist and the better man. And instead, it happened in a dark hallway, and he choked him out and stabbed him in the head,
right in the eye.
Yep.
I remember, so what he does is he's basically, they have this scuffle. It's not even like a graceful fight. It's more of like a dirty scuffle in an alley, which happens like, I imagine it was like at the bottom of a stairwell somewhere.
Yeah.
And they scuffle and it's just a nasty, sloppy fight. And Adolin bests him. He's on top of him and he's like choking him. And he says like, my father thinks that I'm a good man and I'm better than him, but I'm not. I can't remember the direct quote, but when he said it, I got chills.
Right.
And then he drives his dagger through his eye socket, and he's describing how the knife is digging into the back of his skull, like the grinding of the back of the skull is like, my freaking God.
Yep. And then he hides it afterwards.
Yeah, he throws his
shard blade basically into some bushes and like like steps away and like just leave Salius dead in a dark hallway of this tower that's immense that they just got to.
Which leads to a bunch of problems in book 3. It just literally opens up for a whole other thing of BS that people.
There were definitely problems with it, but Adolin at no point feels like he necessarily did the wrong thing. Like he does have doubts, but he's like Sadius would not have allowed us, if he would have been around, he would have not allowed us to do it. And it's very interesting.
I thought it was justified. It never would be someone should murder somebody.
Yeah.
But even my principles, no. You literally tried to trap them. You tried to seize power. You tried to pull so many political things. And my father trusted you.
Yeah. And even after you lost at the end of this book, you're still saying you're going to do it again.
Yeah,
you just said it to my face.
You have to get rid of him.
Very interesting dynamic. We won't get too much into it because that's book 3 territory of like what happens in the fallout of that. But it is very interesting, and it definitely leaves an interesting like kind of weird note at the end, like question mark at the end of Adolin at the end of this book.
Which I think Sanderson does a good job because he gives you closure, but then he opens up like, okay, well, he doesn't
close one door, opened another.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he does a good job of that where it's like, okay, dude, I have to find out what happens. Yeah. But you get somewhat of closure. Although I'm fully against leaving everything up in the air at the end of the book and be like, oh my God, I need to know what happens, because I really like that. Like the way that Empire Strikes Back ended, I was just, wait, I have to wait.
Don't worry, there's more of that. You'll be fine.
No, yeah. So it was rewarding to just feel how physical and how, what's the word I need to? Visceral is the perfect word to describe that. I was just like, yes. I was just imagining the blood like running over his hands. And I feel like if that were me, I would be almost like not even grossed out. I would be so satisfied having the warm blood run down my hands and just being like, this.
I think it does
everything that I wanted.
I think it does a great job of like, because it's one of those things where, like we just said, we both thought it was justified. And we're like, yes, you definitely should kill him. But also Sanderson does a great job of where it's like, man, I just kind of confronted something about myself where I'm like, no, this guy should definitely die.
We don't need to unpack this right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shut
it down.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little bit of that in there, and it's interesting. I love when writers can do that. Let's talk about Kaladin's journey throughout this book, because obviously it's awesome.
Kaladin.
I mean, Kaladin always gets the epic hero shots and stuff, but there has never been a time, because Kaladin in this book, he's obviously been given a responsibility, a new lease on life, but he also he's bad at accepting that lease on life. He wants to trust Dalinar.
He has imposter syndrome, man.
In a way he does, you know. He also has the problem of not only it's a combination of his own depression where he can't accept good things happening to him. He's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's a combination of obviously his intrinsic distrust of Light Eyes in general.
Yeah,
ends up hurting him in this book. And he's confronted, obviously, with characters from his past, because Amarin, the man who forced him into slavery and stole his shardblade from him, shows up. And Dalinar says, hey, yeah, this is my buddy Amarin.
He's the captain now.
Yeah, and he's there. And then, a little while later, says, I'm going to refound the Knights Radiant, because he's trying to interpret these visions. He knows that Amarin isn't some mystical warrior. He's just like, hey, maybe this will like turn out good if I bring it back and like hopefully unite some people. So he doesn't know what he's doing when he gives him that thing. And so obviously Kaladin feels that's a huge betrayal, and he's still does his duty.
Dalinar doesn't necessarily, because I think Kaladin also has these expectations, which is definitely like one of his character flaws, where he's always reluctant to get some sort of like privilege, but then when he gets that privilege, he acts out of line and hastily about it.
He does.
Which is kind of like a weird like conflict to him. I mean, I think it just goes back to his like complete distrust with Light Eyes. But whenever, Dalinar had expressed like, hey, I trust you with my life. You're my guard. And so Kaladin is under this impression where he can, okay, well, I can be very forthcoming about things. And I think that he was ultimately felt like he wasn't trusted whenever he told Dalinar about Amaram. And Dalinar said, well, do that. He's a man of honor. Like, why would he do that?
Mm-hmm.
And Dalinar is a different breed of Light-Eyed. Like, he's obviously not, he seems to, from his past mistakes, seems to have a new lease on his outlook on life. Like, he understands that there is a caste system, but doesn't necessarily treat those who are under him badly. And he wants everyone, even though they're not on the same caste level, to have every opportunity to live at its fullest.
Exactly.
And most Light Eyes don't live that way. And so Amram, obviously, probably not as, he's not like Sadius, but he's not as honorable as Dalinar is. And Dalinar, they have blinders, and he just assumes that because Amram has been honorable to him, that he shares the same values as him. And Kaladin definitely felt betrayed, which I think goes into why he probably gave Moash a little break on what he was doing. But
so this is something. This is one of my favorite things that I wanted to talk about is
Do
Kaladin
it.
in this book. So first off, I do agree that Dalinar had some blinders on, but as we also see later in the book, Dalinar didn't completely trust Amarin. Amarin's more of like an acquaintance.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But remember,
He was
had
a
other people.
mutual.
He had other people in his family, including his niece Jasna, as we see in the prologue, has her own feelings about Amarin that are not positive and does not trust him and things like that. And Dalinar listens to his niece because Jasna's super smart and he loves her. You've shown me only good things in front of me, so I'm willing to trust you. But I also really trust these people, including Kaladin, so I'm keeping my eye out. And as we see later, he literally tricks Amarin and like...
That was at the end of book 2, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Like towards the end of it. It wasn't quite at the end. But he literally tricks him and it's like, no, I set up a little plan, where he like revealed himself and he's like, oh yeah, it's been... So he's also willing to admit when he's wrong. Kaladin, meanwhile, though, in this whole thing, he has a couple things working against him. Kaladin has now like started to be like, hey, I can trust Dalinar at the beginning of this book, but he also is still completely distrustful of Light Eyes to everything. Through his own experiences, he's like, all Light Eyes are the same. They're all distrustful. It's why he has initial friction with Adolin. It's why he has initial friction with Shalon. He thinks all of them are trying to play him in some way because he's a Dark Eyes. What has to come to realize is that Light Eyes are just like Dark Eyes, where they're good people and bad people and everything. And he, for a lot of this book, cannot see that. He's like, all Light Eyes play games. They all are climbing the ladder constantly. None of them are sincere. And the problem is he holds on to that for so long that it literally not only like affects him in his life personally, it also affects his bond with his Sprin and Syl. And he literally at one point, like, he looks at Elhokar, who's the king, who is not the best king, right?
He's young.
Yeah. He's young, but he's not that young. He has a kid,
He's like, what, 25, I imagine?
He's probably in his like mid to late 20s.
But I mean, that's still so young to have such a responsibility.
Absolutely. But, he sees it's a combination of, okay, Dalinar's basically running the show anyways. This guy's not very good. Also, it's been revealed to me
your mom. No,
that Elhokar, through his own past, has not only hurt my best friend Moash, by literally like imprisoning his grandparents and they died in prison. And even though it's revealed that Elhokar didn't do any of this on purpose and was kind of like listened to like his court people and like arrested them on those pretense, it's not like he had any like actual feelings against these people.
Right.
But he also is partially responsible, him and Dalinar to an extent, of sending the man who like ruined his childhood and like sent his brother off to war in his hometown and started his own journey that led to all his pain and suffering going forward.
Right.
And so he has these feelings. He's like, I've seen time and again that you make bad decisions. I've seen that you're a Light Eyes, so I automatically distrust you. I've literally been protecting you throughout a lot of this book and seen that you are not like somebody who should wield this much power. You don't make good decisions. You're not super courageous. You're not super strong or anything like that. So why shouldn't I let Moash, who like wants to kill you out of revenge, do that with this group of shady characters? And then he has to come to realize at the end of this book.
So hold on. Before you get there.
Yeah.
Did you feel did you feel at all that was justified, or were you like, let's let that happen?
So it's a combination of, I feel like it's justified that he does not think Elhokar should be king.
Okay.
And I think he's justified to feel anger around these people. But crucially, during his time in prison, he is there and he literally sees his bond with his Spren break down over the decisions he's made to allow Moash to continue with these plans. And that should have been a big signal to him that what I am as a person, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's not till after that he
because of his
realizes that.
impatience and his
and his prejudice, his own prejudice.
Which I thought was interesting because I can't remember when the Parshendi, the Parshman, was introduced into the bridge, that he found himself treating him lower than him. And I think that there was some sort of recognition like, oh my God, like I'm doing this too. Like I'm literally doing what the Light Eyes do to me.
Yeah.
And he saw it with the bridge crew treating him differently. And he was like, no. Like, give him a weapon.
Yeah.
Because he was doing it initially and he was like, no, wait, what am I doing? Like, I'm literally doing what the Light Eyes do.
Exactly.
He's like, no, give him a weapon.
It just takes him a little longer to connect the dots there where he's like, because he recognizes that his own prejudice against the Parchman. And he's like, oh, what am I doing? He's one of us and things like that.
Yeah.
But then it takes him a little while longer to realize, connect that. Oh, I'm also doing it the other way around by assuming that all Light Eyes are like trying to screw me over, which they're not.
Right. So my thing with that whole dynamic with Moash and Kaladin was that I could not even believe, despite his prejudice with Light Eyes, that he was even entertaining the fact, even assassinating the king. Like it felt so out of character. And I guess that was the point of minor downfall with Kaladin and needing to have to go through that to recognize the importance of upholding this oath that you have because of this power. I was just so blown away that he was even entertaining doing this. Like to distrust and be mad at the king for letting this happen. Even outside of that, like how can the king possibly remember every single detail that's going on in the kingdom, which is why he has that court. Like I don't clearly remember if he remembered that those two were down in the dungeon. Did it say that?
He didn't.
Yes, he didn't lead them to die on purpose. Like it's as unfortunate as it was, he didn't leave them down there to die. Like that wasn't his plan. It was just an unfortunate circumstance of situation.
Yeah. Well,
and I just was so blown away that Kaladin was even entertaining the fact. Like go to the meeting. It wasn't the Ghost Bloods, but was it the Ghost? No. So go to the meeting to kind of see what you're dealing with. Like, okay, like I understand that. And maybe like kind of fake bargain so you can get out the door without being killed. But the fact that he even, okay, let's do this. I was just, what? Like, Kaladin, what are you thinking, brother?
So I'll say, first off, you're right. He goes a long time. He finds out more information. He doesn't say anything to anybody yet, but he's like, Moash, I don't want you to be a part of this. I don't want you to be a part of this, over and over. And he holds that for a while. He's like talking about it in his head and with Syl, who's basically like can hear his thoughts in a way. And so he's like debating amongst himself. He's like, but Light Eyes are terrible and Elhokar is not good. And again, he's now witnessed Elhokar's like everyday kingship multiple times for himself. And he's shown that Elhokar doesn't always make great decisions. Dalinar's kind of running the show anyways, and like he's not really running anything in the kingdom. Second off, he's paranoid. Elhokar's paranoid. He sees assassins around every room. He always thinks something's going to happen to him and things like that. This is an unstable leader. So in his mind, maybe for the kingdom, it would be better. And then when he finally makes the decision to tell Moash that I'm not going to like stop you from doing it. That's another important point, is that it's not like he has to make the decision, okay, I'm going to kill Elhokar. There's just plans already in place. He doesn't fully know what the reasons are besides Moash wanting vengeance, but the other people in the conspiracy, they're, making points about how this is better for the kingdom. We're going to put Dalinar in charge when this is over anyways. He's going to run the kingdom better. So logically that makes sense. And also like he's wronged Moash and me, even unintentionally in the past. And I've witnessed him personally be a bad king and not really be somebody who should be in power. And then when he finally makes that decision, you got to remember it's right after he comes out of being in prison for a couple weeks. Yeah. And what did we say? He has depression. He's literally been depressed this entire time and been fighting that. And so he comes out at his lowest moment, along with all the other stuff he's dealing with. Amaran not knowing if he can trust Dalinar, just had his like bond with his Spren like damaged in a way that he thought was irreparable, and is just like, I'm reeling here. Maybe this is the best decision to be made. And so he makes the decision to basically just step aside and let it happen, which again is easier than actually doing it. It's not like he had to actively commit treason. He was just in his mind, he's like, I'll just let it happen and nobody has to know.
Yeah.
So that's why
There was no way he was going to
regrets
take
it
care of
almost
that.
immediately. Like as soon as like it starts to come, that's when he like
Like, this got out of
immediately
hand.
backtracks on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but that confrontation was so good. How did he get injured again? Like that he was, I can't remember.
okay, so what happened is first off, him and Shalon were
That's
on
right.
the expedition.
That's right. Yeah.
And we'll talk about Shalon here in a second, but they were on an expedition to go find a chasm fiend because Shalon wanted to study it. So she went with like one of the runs to go, find a gem heart that they go on all the time. And during it, there's a saboteur on one of the mechanical bridges that they use, and it broke and they fell into the chasm.
And that was Sadius' plot again, correct?
Yeah. Because by that point, Sadius was like, we just need to assassinate Dalinar. And so somebody, did the bridge, and him and Shalon were the ones who fell of our main characters. And then they had to fight their way back. And during that time, they had to fight a chasm fiend, which is this monstrous, giant bug, basically. And during that confrontation, his leg was broke, so he was hobbled from that. And so that's how he got injured. Then he got a few more smaller injuries while trying to get Elhokar out when he decided, I'm going to save him. And so he was like pretty hobbled and broken by then, but not for long.
Yeah. So before that, like what I found was really cool whenever they first assassination attempt with Seth, where they basically was him, Dalinar, Adolin, and Kaladin.
Yeah.
That I thought was so badass. Like the way that Seth is able to draw in power is so sinister, because it almost like he puts everyone in darkness, and it really kind of, and I'm not sure if it was purposely done. I'm sure it was purposely done, but the way that he kind of draws in, it's almost symbolic, where it's like the light is leaving and the light represents your hope. And it's like he's just drawing in all the light, and like he's just leaving you in darkness, like leaving you in the fear and like everything that the darkness can make you feel. Like that's what he's doing. And he's using in the way that all the lights just go. It just reminds me of like one of those like scary movies when the monster's at the end of the hall and everything gets dark. It's just like,
and at this point in the story, Seth is a monster. Like,
he is.
Nobody, even though Kaladin has shown that he has some kind of powers, he has no mastery over those powers.
Not at all.
And Seth completely does of his, and is just toying with him. Like, doesn't matter if you have shard blades and sharp blades, which up to this point you got to remember are
did this happen after the duel or before the duel?
I believe it happened
before
the duel,
because that's when Adolin became suspicious. Like, who are you, bro?
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong, and it could have happened after the duel, but I'm pretty sure it happened before the.
That's when Adolin's interest was like, dude, like I know there's something.
There's something about you.
There's something. So they have this fight, and basically they fall out of the I guess the castle or the fortress.
The keep, whatever you want to call it.
Seth is like confused. He's like, "Who the hell are you? Like, you're not supposed to do this." Like,
well, he not only is he confused because he's like, "Man, you're a really good fighter," for somebody who like doesn't have shard plate or shard blade, and like he kind of kept up with me there, even though I clearly and. Remember, Seth like still could have killed him right there. But what happened is they fall out of that thing, and then Kaladin heals himself from a wound because remember, Seth stabbed his arm with a shard blade, which should mean that arm is dead forever. But then he heals himself with Stormlight, just like Seth would heal himself with Stormlight. And he's like, "You shouldn't be able to do that."
About this.
And what does Seth say? He says, "I'm truthless." This like they told me I was truthless.
Yeah, it's like this. It confirmed everything. He was like vindicated.
Well, he's vindicated, but what's even? This is what I wanted to find out because this is one of the questions I want to see where your mind is yet because it hasn't been revealed to you, and I'm not going to say anything, but I just want to know. Like, so he says at that point, Seth is confused, and obviously, like I was named truthless. When he sees him heal himself, so he's saying I was like named truthless because they said I was wrong. But it like looks like that might not have been, and so my entire life has been changed by this.
Right.
What do you think he was named truthless for?
Well, I think it's already said at that point. I think that, or it may have said it shortly after.
It's very implied. I don't think it's said specifically for it, but it's pretty easy to connect the dots.
Well, I think Seth predicted that the desolation would happen, or that I can't remember. I don't know the specifics, but he's aware of the overarching war that's going on with the deities or the pantheon.
Yeah.
And he basically told his order or a group of people that, this is going to happen or this exists. Like this belief is not just a belief; it's actually something that's going to happen. And they were basically like, "No, you're full of it. You're lying to a bunch of people." And they basically labeled him truthless because he told this big lie that seemed heretical.
The desolation was coming, and the Knights Radiant would be coming, because that's what happened. Is he saw somebody heal themselves with Stormlight,
and so
he's like, "You don't have the same thing that I have.
Right.
That shouldn't be possible."
And so he was basically punished with basically swearing his allegiance to whoever had this stone that basically commanded him to do these things that he obviously didn't want to do, and he loathed himself for it.
Yeah.
And so he's loathed himself his entire life off of a belief that he thought was true and told that he was basically a liar.
Yeah.
And so when he saw that he was doing this without a blade, he was like, well, hold up, dog. Like, you're not supposed to be doing this. And so he's coming to the recognition. It's like, I was right. I was right. And I've been living a life killing people for someone who is basically made me basically a slave. And I've been doing these things I didn't want to do on an oath that I was led to believe was false, and it's completely true.
Yeah.
So he goes back, and what seemed to me,
he goes a little mad. He goes a little insane.
Yeah.
Is basically what happens. Like he's
questioning his entire life.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't immediately be like, "Oh, I was right the whole time." He's like, he goes and like his whole worldview is upended.
Yeah.
And what happens?
He retreats in what seems to be urethru.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
which at the time we don't know that that's urethru, which is really
because
cool.
the way that they describe it, I was like, and then when actually in book 3, when
also shows that he has a lot more knowledge. Again, because he's like, yeah, I'm at urethru. Of course I'm here.
Because I was like, because the way that they describe some of the architecture, it was like, that's exactly. So he knows where it's at. So I was like, and it was at a time when nobody's there. He was in solitude. Yeah. So he does have some sort of. He has a lot more knowledge than he. Not that he's had anyone to talk to about what he does know, but yeah. So he has this second epiphany, and he goes back to Taravangian and is basically telling him like, "Hey, dude, you've been bullshitting me.
Yeah,
like I've been living a lie. There's a guy over here who can do this." He's like, "We're not talking about it." He's like, "What?"
Now, it is important to point out, Taravangian is not the one who named him Truthless.
Right.
He's just the holder of his oath stone, his stone that makes him follow the orders of whoever carries it, because his people are like a different thing that you haven't seen yet. But he goes there for answers, like to his oath stone. He's like, I don't know what to believe anymore, and he's like,
you don't have to just do what I say.
Yeah, just do what I say. And he's like, okay, I guess I will.
But you know that he's gonna circle back, and to I knew, because as a reader you know that the desolation is gonna happen. Like it's like you're not gonna follow a story where Dalinar's having these dreams and it doesn't come to fruition unless you're some messed up writer just leading us down a false rabbit hole.
Well, especially probably about halfway through the book, it's kind of inevitable. Maybe at the beginning of the book, you're like, oh no, they can stop the desolation.
Yeah. Well, I think it would. I knew the desolation would happen. Like it wouldn't be a good story if it didn't happen. Like to me, whenever when I was reading, I was like, man, dude, like Seth was already such an interesting character, and you're left to think that he, especially after, and we'll get into the climax of the story, but the way that the climax ended and Seth laying there to die, I was like, there's no way he's going to die. There's no way. His story is not over. Like he literally, he is just waking up and just getting started.
That's very true.
Like, so to me, I was like, Seth, I always liked Seth because I knew that he didn't want to do this, even from the very first prologue of the first book.
Yeah.
You know he's a badass. You know he's doing something he doesn't want to do. And there was something honorable about it. Even as bad as it was, I was like, he's doing this because he's fulfilling an oath to someone that is important, that he is going to do regardless, and makes him like a down-ass dude. So if we can just get him to our side, he would be integral to our fight.
Yeah.
But having that revelation revealed to him was like, okay, good. Like this can either make him flip out and be a terrible villain, or this could turn out and he could be a huge hero. Either way, I'm good with. But I was very excited whenever that happened. I was like, good. So yeah, I guess, yeah. But yeah,
that's
so
good. Yeah, that answers my question. So.
Yeah, so I was very in tune with what was going on. I was like, okay, good, all right. Like you refound your purpose. How that plays out will be interesting to see, but very, very interesting. So yeah, to go back, that's how Kaladin was injured back in the chasm. Seeing that interaction between him and Moash was just, it was so good because he was injured and the king was drunk and Moash is basically like trying to give him a pass, like, yo, dog, like, get out of here.
Just get out of the way.
Just go.
We can kill him.
Like,
he's on the ground, drunk and wounded.
yeah,
like what are you doing? Why are you protecting this guy?
Yeah.
And Kaladin right then has the revelation and realizes and says his third ideal. Speaks the words and says the ideal, which is, I will protect those that I hate, as so long as it is right.
And guess what? So was like, I'm back, bitches.
I'm back in a big way.
Yeah, man. Is there anything else before we get into like the climax and
Yeah. I think we should talk about Shalon.
Okay, let's talk about Shalon.
Her story. So the other probably biggest character in this book is Shalon. In fact, all the flashbacks are of her. So we obviously get all of her backstory of her flashback given out in pieces, where we learn that Shalon obviously grew up in a terrible household because of an incident that happened when she was a kid. And that incident is revealed at the end of the book to be that she killed her mother when her mother tried to kill her because she saw her do Radiant stuff. She saw her do it, and
she saw her do what?
Things like she saw her like do some of her powers, and you got to remember that.
So what was the motive with her mom trying to kill her?
Well, it's not clear at this moment, but we do know that the Knights Radiant returning is not something that is welcomed by most Alethi society.
Because that would mean what?
Well, it would mean return of a desolation, and that the Knights Radiant betrayed humanity at some point in the past is what the Vorin, or like what the religion teaches.
Yeah.
They are so like, maybe her mom was like, you're an abomination. You're like going to bring back terrible things like that. Maybe her mom was crazy. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Who knows?
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Exactly. She, self-defense as a very young child, her mother by summoning her shard blade,
which I'm sure she wasn't aware that she probably could do.
Didn't even know she could do it, really. And she did it out of like an instinctual self-defense, and it literally scars her. She literally thinks, like, from her perspective, that the safe that her dad locked the shard blade in is like glowing all the time and like holds her mother's soul. And she's like, as a kid, can't process this trauma that she's gone through. And it shows that, yeah, her dad turns out was a piece of crap, and not a good guy. But also maybe his trauma stemmed from this incident.
Absolutely.
Of watching his daughter have to kill her mother in self-defense and then cover it up and tersedly take the blame for it to protect his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely felt bad for the dad. I mean, he did some terrible things, but he was ridden with a lot of guilt. He was trying to protect his daughter. Alcohol was involved. Yeah. He was trying to do everything he could, and he was
pity was the exact word for that. Like it's like he didn't do any, like, she ends up killing her dad also in this flashback, because he's basically like at that point going to like either harm or kill like most of her friends. He's beating her brother's legs.
And grief has completely turned him into a different person.
Exactly. So this is her entire journey that we learn through these flashbacks. In the present day, after, Jasna is murdered and she has to escape the ship, it's basically her having to like come to terms with her powers again, which she is hidden behind her psyche, because she, like we said, she already knew she had these as a kid, but then basically like repressed it. So she forgot she had any of this.
Yeah.
And then, or at least maybe not forgot completely, but, didn't want to think about it at all. And she's having to like relearn some of these things and expand on them and use those powers to keep herself safe in a very hostile environment. Because she's basically, when the ship wrecks, she's in the middle of nowhere. She stumbles across a band of people who are slavers, has to convince them to like take her where she wants to go. And then on the way there, also has a bunch of deserters from the Shattered Plains who are now just bandits, basically, who will rob and steal and kill anybody. And she has to convince them, Gaz, and then I can't remember the other guy's name.
I was so interested to see him come back.
Yeah, Gaz making a return. And she basically like gets all them. And then she meets Tin, who is this con artist woman who had her own plans going on, and Tin mistakenly believes that she is also a con artist because her story sounds so unbelievable of her being like this promised betrothed to one of the princes of, the entire kingdom. So she's like, oh yeah, that's a great con you're running. And she lets her believe that to ingratiate herself and use her, and then learns that this person is working for a society called the Ghostbloods, who is the ones who killed Jasna, and has secretly kind of been fighting a like subterfuge war with Jasna, where they've been assassinating each other, and they're both after this mystical like place called Erithru and like learning the secrets on the Shattered Plains. And so Tin kind of finds out who she is, and she has to kill her again, and so she kills her, and then has this subterfugal, I have to get in with the Ghost Bloods to find out more, because they're connected to my past with my family, because my dad seemed to be like connected to them in some way, and not only that, but now I need to find out because they might have information that I need. And so she starts to ingratiate herself and meets Mraize, who's like the guy kind of heading the Ghost Bloods and the secret society, whose motives are unclear at this point, but they clearly know more than almost anybody else, around about what's going on and want to find out more. And they may be able to lead her to some answers that she is looking for.
So I thought that itself, I was definitely wanting Shalon to go full steam ahead and join the Ghost Bloods. I was like, yes, girl, do it. Because I was just like, her abilities to basically change her appearance and kind of be like this double agent was like, this is perfect for you. Like, this is perfect. This is exactly what you were made to do, which is purposely done, I'm sure, for Sanderson did. But I want her to get more involved with the Ghost Bloods and really get into like what they're going on, which I'm sure they will do later on in the series. But I was definitely excited. I was like, yes, all right, she's going to be doing something interesting. And I think my biggest, another gripe about the book was that she didn't really do that. And we got a lot of like the courting scenes with her and Adolin, and she wasn't being like herself in a sense of like growing with these powers and like doing the things I wanted her to do, which was necessary because her doing that, we got to see a side of Adolin that I appreciated very much. So it was all for the good of showing sides of characters that I wanted to see. So I say that to say not that I was disappointed that we didn't get a lot more of that in that book, but it revealed a lot about Adolin, which really made me like Adolin. So a lot of the Shalon chapters, I was like, yeah, dude, Aelin's like a good guy. Like he really is. I just really like that guy.
Aelin's awesome.
So much.
And I love him as well. And then also a little bit of a monkey wrench thrown in there with her and Adolin, because she has this like journey with Kaladin because they go down into the chasms.
I know, dude.
And then there's a little bit.
Remember, I texted you. I was like, they're gonna something's gonna happen.
So they get stuck down there for a while. They have to rely on each other, and they really open up to each other and tell each other their full histories. They don't
Does
quite.
Kaladin do?
Yeah, he tells her everything about himself and what led him to be on the Shattered Plains, and
but not anything about Syl and his abilities.
No, so they both are hesitant. She reveals that she has a shard blade. She reveals that she has that. At this point, Kaladin has not manifested a shard blade, so he doesn't have one yet, so he couldn't anyways if he wanted to. But they both but he could absorb Stormlight in front of her if he wanted to. And they both do it around each other, and they're kind of like suspicious of each other, but they don't quite tell each other that. But outside of that, thing that they're both still uncomfortable with, because they don't really know what it means. They don't even know what it means to be a Knights Radiant, or like what that means for them going forward. So I understand their hesitance there, but everything else they basically lay out for it. I don't know if she quite tells him that she killed her mother, but she goes everything.
I think he does, or she does, because I do think that Kaladin left that interaction like, dude, you really had to carry a burden.
Well,
or maybe it was the dad. Maybe it was the dad.
I think she tells him everything about her dad, but the mom one I don't think happens, because specifically at the very end of the book, she says that truth aloud for the first time to Pattern, which is one of her truths that she says to progress her ideals, because he said you have to say truths to progress, and that's the truth the darkest truth that she was hiding, that the reason she feels that her entire family became so dysfunctional was because of her, because she killed her mom.
Could have been.
I mean, yeah,
it could have been a catalyst for the downfall. Yeah. But was So
there's great interactions throughout that. The moment where Kaladin gives her boots when she's pretending to be a horn-eater princess.
Oh yeah, the little subtle jokes there.
Yeah, I
remember, girl.
Yeah.
I remember.
Shalon's witty as hell, and she's
I
super
love her.
fun. Yeah.
I love her for that. I feel like she is very fun because she is trying to, which is her whole dynamic. It's like she's trying to figure out where to fit in. I think her age has a lot to do with it. She's immature, but she's really just trying to figure out like her identity. Like she, had these relationships with her brothers where they didn't really appreciate her until she started kind of like being herself. And they're like, "Oh no, we really do like you, Shalon.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna treat you differently because of this and that, but with like, behind the scenes, like we really do like you." And her, she's just she is a likable character. She just does goofy things. Like what? Like she's
That's
just very airheady.
In a way, she is. She obviously
Has a hard time focusing.
Well,
but that's
she
because
does.
of her. She's trying to do too much.
Well, she also like because of her own psychological issues, like she acts differently around different people because wait, like maybe it's a little more than that. Maybe it's because like you act differently around these people because you're being a different person when you're around them than others. And so it's a combination of her not only gaining confidence and also the fact that now that Justin is dead, she didn't have anybody to guide her. She's basically like has to talk her way into like all these things. Like, yes, there's a promised betrothal with Adolin, but when she arrives, there's no reason that they have to honor that. They could be like, there's no reason for us to do this anymore. And so she has to like convince everybody that what she's doing and convince everybody that, hey, the desolation's coming, the parchment are part of it. And even though I don't have any proof of it, I have a lot of theories and I need y'all to listen. And luckily she's persuasive enough to get them to listen.
Yeah. She has a lot of growth, and she's very resourceful in how she moves around despite her social clumsiness and her having a hard time trying to balance all the different things she's trying to do.
She has that classic, like, she doesn't feel that she's as, like, pretty or charming as, like, she wants to be. And everyone else can kind of recognize, oh, no, you are pretty and charming. Like, you are, like, those things. You just have to be more confident about it.
Yeah.
And you'll be able, if you're confident about it, and she
Confidence
starts
goes
to
a long
realize
way.
through this book that, oh, if I'm confident, like, I do have the skills to pay the bills kind of thing.
Oh, she does. Another thing before we get into the climax, and I feel like we're talking about orgasms, nerdgasms as well.
Nerdgasm.
Man, the dueling scene with Adolin, like, is so good that, you know, they basically are trying, like, this one duel is going to be the one that kind of turns the tides in regard to influence in the kingdom, and everyone's there to watch. And Adolin kind of gets himself into a deal that he didn't think was going to go down.
Yeah.
And ends up having to fight 4 people or 3 people.
So it's 4. And so what happens is he's fought some duels. You know, his dad's
and before all this, he's trying to make sure he still has friends with all the high princes, and finds that nobody wants to align with him to kind of sway the influence towards Dalinar's cause, because everyone still thinks that Dalinar's kind of lost his mind.
Yeah.
And his friends, who were his friends, kind of, you know, at least they do it to his face. For like, look, man, we can't side with you.
Yeah.
This looks really
They're
bad.
keeping him at arm's length.
Yeah.
Is what they're like, we can socialize and like hang out a little bit, but we're not going to back you politically.
And then
basically.
it's really revealed that they really were going to do him dirty.
Yeah, well, he pushes and pushes, and like he wins duels, and in various fashions, all spectacularly in different ways, and like leads them in the direction he wants to go, until finally they're like, all right, you want this? We'll do it. And he is like, all right, they come up with this plan. Basically, actually, it's Shalon who like kind of comes up with the plan, and the whole thing is he's like, all right, I'll get this duel, and like when I win the duel, Elhokar as the Kai King can can give me a boon for anything that I want, and the thing that I will ask for is to duel Sadius. And because of like our laws and like our honor system, he won't be able to refuse.
And that will be the way I get my
That'll be the way. Turns out though that he didn't quite word his like wording
agreement
for this duel, and oops, it means that any number of people can be added to the duel. So now he's fighting 4 shard bearers at once.
And I think he was under the impression that he was going to fight 2.
Yeah, he was going to fight 2 at maximum. Nope, he's going to fight 4, and they all have shards bearers, and they're going to look to at the very least, maim him and take him out, you know.
Not just lose, but
yeah,
destroy his ability to even command any sort of influence.
Or
physically.
outright kill him, whatever, you know, has to happen in there. There's some rules and, you know, and things like that they're
Which
kind
I
of
think they
bound by.
were totally going to bend against them anyway.
Oh, yeah. And so now he's in this situation, and he's in a no-win situation, because as good as Adolin is, like, it's also does a great job of showing it. The great thing about some of these like fight scenes is it shows it's like, hey, you can be the most badass guy out there, but like numbers matter. And like, you know, these guys are also good enough. They might not be quite as good as you, but if there's 4 of them, like
with sharp plate and weapons.
Yeah, you can't defend all of them. You can do your best,
right.
And he does a great job, but like he's losing. And then the only person who'll come down to save him is his brother, Renarin, who we haven't talked about much in this book, but Renarin, who, you know, obviously has his own issues, is not a fighter, is not able to like duel or anything like that, is afraid, is not like the person who did it, but he loves his brother. And so he goes down there without any weapons and like tries to like help him.
I thought that he had or no, he didn't have a weapon yet.
I don't think he brought him that. He wasn't like in his, because he does have.
He doesn't have shard plate, but I thought he had.
He does have shard plate. He was given shard plate by his dad at the end of book 1, because he gave him his shard plate.
I don't know why I thought he had a weapon.
I think he does have a shard blade by then because Adolin has
given him one.
Like, given him one from winning these duels along the way.
But when he was holding it, he couldn't wield it because of the screaming.
Yeah, because of the screaming. And so, like, when he holds the blade, and also other characters, including Kaladin, when they hold a shard blade, they hear, like, these screams. And
because they don't belong. They haven't fused with it, or they haven't.
Well, yeah. By the end of the book, we realize it's because the shard blades are basically dead sprint.
Right.
And so, if you have a sprint bond, and something, they're anathema to you. That, like, touching them, like, is, like, it's like touching a dead body or something like that. It's something where it's like, man, that's gross.
Right.
And so Renarin doesn't want to wield it, but he like tries his best. And then Dalinar, like seeing that his son's about to die, like asks all the people present.
He's like, please,
anyone save him. This is not honorable. This is like, what are y'all doing?
And
You're
Sadius is just loving every second of it.
And then who steps up to help? The only man who will, Kaladin, our boy. Steps in.
No shard plate.
Just
no shard weapon.
Just a wooden spear. And they win. They win, man. Because that's how badass they are.
Where I was getting goosebumps was just so like, this was like one of the things I was like, yes, this needed to happen, because now Dalinar, for so many reasons, Dalinar now he now knows that Kaladin will lay down his life as he promised, and it's exemplified through this action. Like you're fighting shard bearers with no weapons, no armor. That with the courage that it takes to do that, like it's a death sentence.
Yeah,
it's a death sentence.
Yeah,
and he's willing to lay down his life to do it because it's the honorable thing. And so Dalinar's like, okay, this dude.
Yeah.
Okay,
he's a real one.
He's a real one. And so they end up winning.
And it does the same thing for Adolin as well. Adolin also like sees this and is like,
yes,
because him and friction, and then he's like,
which leads me to believe that I think that duel with Seth happened before.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so, because he was skeptical, he's like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then when he fights and stands up for Adolin, he's like, okay. And there, like, he came when he didn't have to, and he doesn't understand Dalinar's. He understands it, but he doesn't necessarily apply it as much as Dalinar, like the honor and stuff like that, because he's still like young and trying to figure things out. But then when he sees that intimidation, so he basically calls his boon. He's like, and I want to challenge Anaram, and then basically Elhokar just like, no, you're going to jail for all this. And then it's shown through, and this is when I really was just like, Adolin,
you're my boy, Blue.
You're my boy, Blue. He volunteers himself to go into prison to stay as long as Kaladin's in there.
Exactly.
Even though the living situation might have been a little more
fluffy, he wasn't quite in like his cell.
What am I?
But
I'm not a
I mean, he still voluntarily put himself in a prison. So so like at the end of the duel, Adolin asks for the boon from Elhokar, which he grants, and he's like, I challenge Sadius. But then Kaladin, not understanding that, like, hey, like, you may be a captain and have been elevated to status, but you're still a Dark Eyes in this society, and you can't just ask for these things. And he challenges a high prince, basically, to a duel as well. And he was like, Elhokar's like, this was not yours to ask for. And Elhokar wasn't wrong to say that, because under the law, like,
Kaladin was way out of line.
Yeah, but obviously Kaladin doesn't understand. He's like, no, I don't understand. You wronged me and stuff. So he's like, that's where Kaladin starts to spiral and where he starts to make some bad decisions. But the one light at the end of the tunnel is when he emerges from that prison, he realizes that Adolin also voluntarily put himself in prison as well. And they still have a little friction, but now it's like playful brotherly banter.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Where he's like, them by. What was
Bridge
and weapon.
They did. They offered Kaladin plate and weapon from the duel because he won it by being one of the members of it, and he gives it to Moash instead because he, like, for him, shard plate and shard blade is too much baggage. It's too much baggage with his past, and already have given it up once. He couldn't do it again, and so he gives it to Moash, his trusted, like, best friend, which was probably not a good idea.
Which we'll get into. So he basically gives it to Moash. And Moash himself starts to become a Light Eyes. And at this point, I'm just like, man, why would you refuse it a second time? But it all makes sense at the end. Journey before destination.
Journey before destination.
Let me put this girl up. Hold on. So yeah, Moash gets the sharp plate and the sharp blade. And I guess we can talk about the ending because it goes right into it.
Absolutely.
So he's with Elokar and they're going to assassinate him. And Kaladin at this point has basically come to terms with, look, like this is not the right thing to do. He let the situation get out of hand. And Syl, who basically has been gone because he's strayed so far from the oaths that
he's
sworn to uphold that grants him this ability to do these things, returns when he speaks the words. And we can just go right into the ending.
Yeah. So at the end of the book right now, there's two things going on. One thing is that Dalinar, Adolin, Shalon, and Navani, they've all gone out. They finally have like gotten this expedition to
This
go
seems
out.
so much like an ending of like, to me, all this just seemed like this could have been the ending of the entire saga.
In
Like
a way, right?
the way that everything was playing out.
Yeah. So they've been planning an expedition and he's been trying to get support. And finally he has just enough support to do it where he's like, we're going to go out, we're going to crush the Parshendi, and we're also going to find.
Once and for all.
And like Shalon's other motivation is like, I'm going to find this oath gate. I'm going to find it and we're going to find out all these mysteries and we're finally going to get all the answers we need. And we're going to win the war at the same time, the war of vengeance and everything. Meanwhile, Kaladin's been injured, so he has to stay behind because he's got a busted leg. And he stays back there and he realizes that Moash is also.
It elevates so quickly without any puns intended.
Yeah.
But it just goes so haywire. Like the abilities that these Radiants have. You're just like, oh my God. So they have this fight between Moash and Kaladin.
Yeah, it's not really a fight. It's more of like he like backs them off and then they run away in a way. Like they don't have
okay, I thought they fought for a minute.
No, not really.
They're like breaking his spear and he's still like refusing to give up.
Well, so he's refusing to give up. He's basically just standing there like on death's door in a way and like has only a knife on him. And that's when he says the words and he hears Syl say, stretch forth thy hand. And that's when she appears as a shard blade in his hand. The windows all open up. All the spheres down the hallway go out. And then that's symbol of the Windrunners, which is his Knights Radiant Order, appears behind him in frost as the wind flies through this hallway and he's standing in front of Elokar and he's fully healed, absorbing all this Stormlight, and he says the Knights Radiant have returned.
And then that's when Moash is like, okay, I think we're gone.
Yeah, well, his conspirator is like also kind of like reveals his hand at that point where he's like, the diagram says that this wasn't supposed to happen because it turns out, he's been working for Teravingian this whole time. And
I didn't catch that, but okay, interesting.
Yeah, so that's who they were. The conspirators that Moash like aligned himself with they didn't tell him until after all this is done, but he's like, they work for the diagram, which is Teravingian's secret like thing that he's doing where he's pulling all these puppet master strings behind the scenes where they're based off of that and they call themselves the diagram.
The diagram.
Yeah, because Teravingian.
So many secret orders in this
exactly.
book. I didn't even catch the diagram.
So
interesting. So I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, so he gets the powers. Meanwhile, on the Shattered Plains, they're fighting the Parshendi, but the Parshendi are different because in the interludes throughout this book, we've gotten perspectives from the leader of the Parshendi, or the war leader of the Parshendi, Ashonai, who during this book went out in a high storm and let this special spren into her that turns out maybe this spren was not a good idea. They were desperate, like the Parshendi were desperate. They were slowly dying basically in this war. And so she was pushed into a move, and her sister also kind of convinced her to do it because her sister had her own motives, and they pushed it, and basically they allowed these spren that are different than other spren into their gem hearts, because that's how the Parshendi change form is they go out into the high storm, and like if they want to take mate form, they let in special spren into them that allows them to turn to mate form, war form, duel form, all these different forms that they have because they can literally change their bodies based off of that. And they let in the spren that is of the evil god Odium. And now she has this new form called Storm form, and it completely changes her personality. And
that's what I loved most about it, is that the way that they spoke, like their passions, was that they completely changed their personality. And there's always that little voice in the back of their like, oh wait, there's there's always that little voice that's neutral to everything. It's like, oh, this is aggressive. Like you can kind of hear that inner dialogue a little bit, which I thought was interesting.
So the Parshendi, Parshendi speak, they talk out loud to each other, but they also speak in these rhythms and it's like the rhythms of Roshar. So they speak with almost like a cadence that also expresses their emotion. So what happens is
so you can't hide.
Yeah,
so you're not able to hide like your intention. Like
you can, because obviously she's playing a subterfugal game once she has the Spren in her heart, the different Spren that gives her the storm form, and so she's speaking now to different rhythms than like, because that's the thing is they have these rhythms, and they'll call them different, the rhythm of loss, the rhythm of agitation and stuff. But then once she absorbs this, she has different rhythms,
and they pick up on that. That's different.
They kind of pick up on it, but she is still able to speak the old rhythms when she wants to, but it requires effort under her part to kind of like hide her true emotions.
Yeah.
And so, the Parshendi, basically she convinces them to like go out into the storm and absorb these Spren, and now they're going to try and destroy the Alethi in this big battle. And the way they're going to do it is summoning a storm of their own, a different storm, not the high storm, not the one controlled by the Stormfather, but a storm of odium,
the Everstorm.
The Everstorm.
So, yeah, the way they set the setting where it's like dark outside, it's raining, like it's just like they're fighting in like a hurricane storm, and it's just so epic. The setting itself just seems like it's the end of all things.
Yes.
And I was just going like, man, like this is so intense. And then Adolin goes on this like little mission to kind of like circle back around them and kind of start slaying them.
He tries to get into their back lines to destroy, because they notice because also
they're all like in a trance.
So some of them are singing the storm into fruition, basically, and so they recognize that, because also Relaine, the Parshman who was part of Bridge 4, who left partway through the book, didn't tell anybody why, just said to Kaladin, I have to leave. It's revealed because he comes out onto the plains and he reveals, hey, this whole time I've actually been a spy for the Parshendi. I have, not...
Which was kind of odd. I'm like, what do you, like, why are you here?
So, I mean, if you think about it, like, if you're the Parshendi...
I didn't realize he was a Parshendi. Well, I mean, I had an idea, but...
Yeah, so what he did is he was because they had a couple spies throughout there, but he was one of them. And the whole thing is that the Parshendi, like we said, can change forms. One of their forms is dull form, which makes them kind of slow and stupid. But it's not the same as the Parshmen themselves. The Parshmen are locked into their forms, cannot change form. But dull form is close enough, and because obviously the inherent prejudice against Parshmen, where people don't pay attention to them anyways, they're almost like luggage. They're almost like a piece of machinery more than they are people in any way. And so he has affected this dull form, which like slows his senses, and like makes him slow mentally and slow physically, but like still allowed him to basically like infiltrate the camp and like give out information. So he did that for a while, but then like when he comes back, because the Parshmen, like not all of them were on board with this plan. Some of them ran away when they did the Stormform stuff, and then he comes out and basically tells Bridge 4 and Dalinar and like the army, he's like, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the Parshendi. My people are, this is not what we do. They're changing for something better, and something terrible is happening. So he gives them a little information. So during the battle, they're trying to destroy some of these people singing the storm into existence. Adolin does some of that. Meanwhile, Shalon is trying to locate this Oathgate and find out what it is and what's going on there. And they have an idea that it can lead them to Erithru, which is the fabled city, the Knights Radiance headquarters that no one knows where it is on Roshar. And so she's like, we got to get there and find this Oathgate. And
lots of moving pieces. So as they're doing this, and as the battle's starting to turn in their favor, like they're doing okay. And then who shows up? Surprise.
Seth. Come back to finish his job and kill Dalinar.
With probably a little more purpose now, because he's probably
crazy purpose.
Yeah, he's like, yo, I'm gonna do what I'm told. I'm furious. I'm about to let the wrath of the Radiant.
And he goes into him. He kills, scores of people easily. He literally, one of the high princes who had sided with Dalinar on this expedition, that guy jumped on his back, and he was kind of a cowardly high prince. So I was like, oh man, you're like doing something. Jumped on his back, and he just touches him and reverses his gravity and sends him into the sky. And then when his Stormlight runs out, he just comes crashing back down at full velocity.
Yeah, the way they described the crunching when he came back, he was like, I was like, oh, yeah. God.
So he does that. And then in this moment of oh God, it doesn't matter because Seth's here. He's going to destroy us and stuff. And manages to touch Dalinar, after a little bit of a battle. But
Adolin's there though, right?
Adolin's there, but he can't stop it. Like nobody can stop Seth at this point.
So, yeah.
And so they're fighting at this point, and Adolin's by his dad's side, and he witnesses Seth touch Dalinar and send him in the sky, just like he sent the High Prince. And
I thought at this part, I was like, damn, okay, Dalinar's dead.
Yeah. Right.
And I was like, okay, this is going to set the motion for Adolin to step up, and he's going to do the amazing things. But
that's not what happened. Suddenly, they
Kaladin,
look up. Dalinar's floating back down to the sky.
With grace.
And they're like, what's happening? And then who lands right there from the sky like an avenging angel?
Which I didn't realize was the fucking cover of the book.
It is.
Oh, that's what this says.
And it's Kaladin, just sworn the third ideal after done protecting Elhokar, and he realized something's going on out there and he needs to be there. And he comes flying in, literally flying now, because now he can fly, and lands and is like, let's go. Round 2, Seth.
From this point forward, it's literally Matrix Evolutions, Agent Smith and Neo, like fighting in the sky of a giant thunderstorm, like the rest of the book.
So
and
the
it's
High
so
Storm
intense.
and the Everstorm are now, because the Everstorm meets, they fly in different directions, they meet. Cataclysmic storms happen. Literally, the Shattered Plains, pieces of it are being lifted up into the sky, and Seth and Kaladin are fighting.
This is world-ending atmosphere.
World-ending atmosphere. At one point, a giant piece of the plateau goes into the air, and they run along it in the middle of the air, like they're running across the ground.
Is so intense.
And they're battling in the sky, and Kaladin is in
striking with lightning.
We realized that, hey, when you have your Sprin as your blade, it can be more than just a blade. It can be anything you want. Great moment when he's like, when Syl says to him, he's like, "Oh, you probably want me to be a spear, right? You're more comfortable with a spear than a sword."
So when that happened, I was like, why didn't she just assume a spear whenever they were going to fight Moash?
I think it was just a moment of the sword, the shard
it was
blade
a representation.
Is a representation.
Yeah.
And also, Syl is like, she thinks differently than people. Like, ideas come to her differently. So she probably was like, it didn't occur to her to be a spear until that moment. When he had the thought of like, man, I wish I had a spear. And she's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then turns into a spear. Not only a spear, during the battle, turns into a shield, turns into an axe, turns into anything you want it to be, it can be.
So this gave me, I swear to God, Brandon Sanderson plays Final Fantasy.
Kind of feels like Sephiroth versus Cloud, doesn't it?
That, and so like everything about Stormlight Archives to me so far with the magical presence of like these stones and crystals is very Final Fantasy to me. The fact that Kaladin is a spear wielding flying, warrior reminds me of a dragoon.
Yeah.
And then you have these lashings, which reminded me of Final Fantasy 15, I believe.
Maybe.
Where
possibly.
They are able to...
So the last Final Fantasy game
it's the one where the friends go out and you drive it in the car. And
oh, yeah. So I didn't play that one. I played 16.
Super average. Started out great and then kind of just fell apart.
Well, it was a partially completed game. They didn't
So they have the weapons that change to different kind of weapons.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just like... Not saying like he ripped it off. It was just had like these these similarities. I was like, man, this is just like the way that it can kind of like change forms and turn it to like whatever you need to. It was just so crazy, which leads me to believe like maybe other people can do this, or that might be very specific to his relationship with Syl, but not sure. Question's not answered yet. But it was just really cool having this elaborate fight between Seth and him, and the fact that they were in the storm, his boundless and limitless pool of energy that he can draw from just made him so powerful.
Yeah, because the Stormlight comes from the high storm.
Right.
And so like the fact that when they're in the sky during a high storm, they don't ever have to recharge with the spheres.
It's just like constant.
There is that great moment though before they fly up into the sky when like Kaladin first lands and then he's like stepping up to Seth, and then Bridge 4 just is like Tef shouts the order and they throw down a bunch of spheres in front of him like ready to go, and like just immediately he absorbs all of them, and it's like Bridge 4, man, they were ready for him. They were ready. They never lost hope.
Bridge 4 for life.
So they're fighting in the sky, and then Seth is like, I'm going to kill Dalinar. I'm crazy at this point. I'm just going to
because that's what Teravangian told him to do.
Yeah, and so he's diving down to the ground, and at the same time, smash cut over to Shalon. She has found the Oath Gate, realizes that it's some type of fabrial, which is the technology that they did, some kind of advanced fabrial, and she's like, this is like a doorway to Erythru. So they gather the whole army, get them onto the plate the plane
So much is going
thing.
on.
They figure out how it works, that it needs a radiant shard blade specifically, not just any shard blade. It has to be a radiant shard blade, and they have to have the spheres to like power it. So they get those. She does it, and they all vanish. So Seth lands looking to kill Dalinar and like get away from Kaladin, and he lands, and they're all gone.
Yeah.
Because they have all been transported to Erythru.
So while all of this is going on, they're getting word out that all the troops need to go to where Shalon is, and so slowly throughout, fighting, the Parshmen, and then Seth shows up. All these people are kind of trickling out, and one of the things I found funny was what's the High Lord's name?
Like, yeah, I did the retreat.
Yeah, like everybody's gone.
Yeah.
He's like, but I'm gonna enjoy this wine.
Yeah.
And my little charcuterie board that I imagine.
Well, he goes with them. They all get transported.
Yeah. But I just thought it was funny that he was just kind of like, if it's the end, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like,
his mistress is reading a book as it's happening.
I'm just imagining like them under like a flappy awning that's just going. They just are like.
Yeah, they're great minor characters.
It's
awesome.
It was just, they don't even care. Like,
So
I lived a life of comfort. Like, that's just the vibe I was getting. It's like, I lived a good life. If this is the way I go, it's the way I go. But I'm going to read this book and drink my wine.
So then, so they land, they're gone. And so Seth is like, obviously, I know where they went because he has more knowledge than other people. He's like, they're going to Erythru. So he starts flying west immediately, and Kaladin catches up to him, knock eye to his presumed death down below.
And he gets the blade, which reading through book 3, I don't think they talk about it much.
Not yet, because Seth is not, he has interlude chapters.
Well, no, I'm talking about the blade that Kaladin took from him.
So they took it. Still does say what it is at the end of.
Well, I know what
book
it
2.
is, but I mean, like, they don't. It's not mentioned a lot in the third book.
Not yet. It is like
it's almost like it's
Kaladin has it. He gives it to Dalinar, and so he's in possession of. But what the blade that Seth had this whole time, it's been mentioned before. But what it is an honor blade, which is a special blade. It's one of the blades that the heralds wielded. One of the 10 blades that the 10 heralds wielded, and it allows whoever holds it to have the power of the Knights Radiant that blade is, because each of the heralds founded one of the Knights Radiant orders, right? Mm-hmm. And so this blade is why he has the same power. It's the lash, which is one of the surges, because lashings are just different forms of the same surge.
So I'm assuming he's a Windrunner or adjacent to.
He had the blade for the Windrunners.
So he had the Windrunner blade.
That's why he had the same powers.
Okay, right? I just wasn't sure if he was adjacent
important.
to.
Seth is not a Knights Radiant.
No.
He just had an honor blade, the honor blade of Jezreel, king of the heralds, who founded the Windrunners.
Gotcha.
And so he had that blade,
so he had the Windrunner
loses it, and then at the end of this book, that's when Nail, one of the other heralds, comes to him and says, I think you'd make a great Skybreaker. I think that you want to find justice.
Is that adjacent to Windrunner?
It is. It's right next to it. So, has one of the same surges as Windrunners, but also has a different surge. And so he gives him that, and he gives him a very, very special sword.
Mm-hmm. The conversation.
Would you like to destroy evil?
The conversation that they have. So I guess we can go in. Okay, so
so we're past the climax has happened. Now we're in the epilogue area.
Yeah, so then you get Adolin killing Sadius in a much, much easier way than he deserved. So now they're Erythru, and Dalinar now founds no, I know I founded the Knights Radiant before, but no, this is official.
Yeah,
this is a big deal.
So we have the Nail and Seth thing. We've already kind of touched on that. So then they're in.
Well, no, I want to talk about that conversation. So let's talk about that. When I read that, I was just like, yes, Seth, refined your purpose.
Yeah,
refined it.
So just making sure you're connecting the dots in this book. Nail was in some of the interlude chapters. You recognize him, do you not?
I did not.
So Nail, the Herald of Justice.
The interlude, and that's one of the things that I struggled with was the interlude chapters, because they were some were connected and some were so disconnected. I was like, I don't know.
Some are disconnected. There are two that I want to point out here because it responds to Nail. One of them is we get an interlude chapter of a man in another part of Roshar where he's a cobbler. He makes shoes, right?
Oh, is it? He was the shoemaker?
No. Well,
okay.
So he was making shoes, right? And he was
that was a cool chapter
for a little boy, and he mysteriously heals the little boy's foot with some Stormlight. So clearly he has some powers of his own. But who shows up? Nail shows up and kills that man. And he says, I killed you because I'm trying to stop something. Then the other time we see Nail is in Lift's chapter, her interlude chapter. So Lift is a little girl.
That was Nail too?
That was Nail. So
Nail's not a good dude.
Nail's not quite he's not a paragon. He's not a paragon of justice. All the heralds were considered like they're demigodly beings. You know, they all are
Okay. So he's one of the 10?
He's one of the 10. Nail, Herald of Justice.
Can you say, without giving too much away, those two events, did they occur before this desolation, or was this in another cycle?
No, they occurred in this timeline. So in this book, it happened. So like,
okay, so it happened.
Yeah, it happened in this book. Nail doesn't show up to Seth until the very end of this book. But while all this other stuff is going on, those interlude chapters were happening in the present day in other parts of Rashar, other parts of the continent. And because remember, we know that Nail is a herald, so he has his own ways of moving around. So he can get where he wants to quickly. And he was going around basically hunting down these people with powers and killing
you've
them.
Just opened up a whole other thing for me.
So he goes to Lift, who also has powers of her own, which she seems to be another order, and they mention it in the book. It's called Edge Dancers. So she has a healing power like the old man, along with a power that involves friction because she's slippery, right? She slides everywhere. And so she has surges of her own, and she has a sprint of her own. And
I think I need to read a quick
might need to read some of the interludes again.
Well, no, I think I'm not definitely
or a summary of his interludes.
I think I need to. Yeah, I guess I could do that, but I think I need to look at a spoiler-free description of the orders so I can know what their powers are. Or should I not do that?
I would not, because some of the orders have not been revealed to you yet. Like you said, you don't know all the orders yet.
Okay.
You know here.
Well, just their abilities, not so much who founded it, what their purpose was.
Yeah, but it'll be kind of tricky to
so I won't do
some of that.
Okay.
But what we know so far is that Kaladin is a Windrunner. We know Shalon is a different order, than him. And then we know that, which isn't one of the orders. We know Jasna also had Night Radiance powers, but was different than Shalon, but maybe adjacent to Shalon of her own order. It's also, remember, each order has its own spren that they bond with.
Right.
So like Honor Spren bond, which is what Syl is, bond with Windrunners. You know, Pattern and the Cryptics bond with Shalon's order. Okay. And then Lift had her own spren, a different spren called the Cultivation Spren that she bonded with. And that's for her order, the Edge Dancers. So there are different ones, and by which spren they are, you know that they're different orders and things like that.
Interesting. Nail. Man.
Herald of Justice.
I need to pay more attention to these interludes.
Yeah, they're important.
Nail.
Yeah, some of them are more Easter eggy and like tidbitty than others. But
I knew that the person he was talking to was a herald, but I didn't realize that that Nail was the same guy who killed the shoemaker, and the same one who killed.
Exact same description of the person. So Nail's been doing his own thing and wants to bring Seth in on this.
Bring him into the fold.
Yeah. So then the last thing to touch on, I would say, there's two more things, but the one of the things is, so they're in a read-through now. We already talked on Adolin and how he kills Sadius, but then Dalinar also, he's now met with Kaladin and Shalon. They've revealed that they are Knights Radiance and that they know that now, and they're open about it now. They've obviously used their powers completely in public, so it's not a secret anymore.
Right.
That people know that, and Dalinar realizes, okay, I need to be a part of this. So he goes up to the top of a read-through and has a chat with the Stormfather, which is basically a giant spren, the one who is in charge of the High Storm. He's a spren of honor, who is the deity, the god of this world. So he's basically a little piece of honor, that's been imbued with its own consciousness into the storm. He is the one that goes to the storm. He calls the honor spren his children and things like that. So the Stormfather is big time. And what does Dalinar do? Immediately says multiple ideals. He says the first ideal, which is the same forever, and then he says his own ideal for his order, the Bondsmiths.
Bondsmith.
It's not told what they do specifically, but the Stormfather makes it clear. First off, I'm not going to, I'm not like other spren.
Yeah, you
can't be using me swinging me around as a sword. That's not going to happen. You're not going to be ever wielding a shard blade again in any way. Your bond is different. You are about connections. And so Dalinar is now a bondsmith, a special order that you learn more about as the books go on. At the very end of this book, he's now a Knight's Radiant as well. He shows he can absorb Stormlight. It's awesome because Dalinar just does it. It's like you have to go through all the growth of everybody else. I mean, he goes through his own growth, but he doesn't go through. It's like, oh man, I got to figure out what my ideals are. He's like, nope, know them. Here they are. Bam.
He's always been
Bondsmith.
very in tune with and more accepting with everything that's been coming in.
Well, and he's been getting these visions
for,
that have been sent by the Stormfather on the request of Honor, who is dead. That because they say Honor's dead, and like, you know, in the first book, what that means, you know, is he actually dead? Can a god die? You know, so but he's like there, so he is now, his sprint is the Stormfather. He's a bondsmith at the end of this,
which
book.
is perfect because he was the one who was trying to unite everyone.
He comes down and he's like names his order. You know, Shalon's like, I'm here, you know, and like, this is my order, the Light Weavers. And then also
Renarin.
Kaladin is there. And then who steps out of the shadows? Renarin. And names his order, Truth Watchers. Also revealed at this time, towards the end of the book, that Renarin was the one who was writing the numbers that was saying, hey, like, the desolation's coming.
Was he conscious when he was doing that?
Yes, he was conscious. But you don't know much about what Renarin can do. He's a little squirrely, right? But it's revealed, hey, and there were little hints throughout the whole book. There's a moment where, like, Adolin notes, he's like, hey, you're not wearing your glasses anymore. And he's like, no, I don't need the glasses anymore. I mean, he doesn't say it that way, but he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And that's
mind your business.
Yeah, but it's because he can absorb Stormlight now, which heals you, as we know. Something you could heal is fucked up vision, which he does. And so now we have a setting there, and we have multiple orders, including this one that we didn't know we had. And and then that's basically it, except for the epilogue. And the epilogue's great because, as always, the epilogue is from Wit's perspective.
Beloved Wit.
Wit. Mysterious, enigmatic, awesome Wit.
I love Wit.
And where's Wit? He's in the middle of nowhere.
Wit.
He's in the middle of a forest. And what's he waiting on? He's telling a story to a frog is what he's doing.
He's so...
You know?
I love him.
But you know, at the end of the books, when Wit's somewhere off on his own, something big's about to happen. At the end of the first book, what happened? Talanin, Herald of War, returned where he was. And who shows up in this one? Jasna. Guess what? She's not dead.
Surprise.
Jasna escaped somehow, and she comes out of a portal, and she's like, I'm here. Didn't die. Saved myself. And he's like, we should probably get to work, and has a great exchange with her where she's like, we don't have much time. The parchment, and he's like, nope, already handled. Then it's like, well, the Knight's Radiant, like, already refounded. And it's like, so you want to get to work now? And
damn, I got to start over. All the work I did happened without her.
Yeah, exactly. Jasna was like, had all these ideas, and turns out she had the same ideas that like ended up happening. But it's like, here we are. Yep, Jasna's alive.
Good. She needs to stay busy.
She needs to stay busy.
She's the person.
Anyways.
She does not know how to relax.
She does not.
She needs something to do.
No, yeah, she's going to definitely do some stuff.
Yeah. I can't remember. There wasn't too much that was said between them at this point, right?
No,
at least
that's basically it. She shows up. He was there waiting for her. She's like, what's up? It doesn't quite reveal. We know Jasna has a different order, so now we know we have Truth Watchers, Light Weavers, Windrunners, Bondsmiths. We know that an Edge Dancer's out there, which is Lift, you know, but she's off on her own right now. And then we know Jasna, whose order has not been named yet, but she has a different sprint completely from them. We know she has one of the same surges as Shalon, but she also has a different surge. Maybe it has something to do with that portal that she came out of.
That concludes the book. Highly recommended. This book is it's amazing.
If I could tell you to start with this book, I would. Obviously, there's no way to do that. You have to read the first book first. And the first book's great.
The first book is amazing.
So
it's my favorite one so far.
Most people like really love the first book.
And they said it was the weakest one. I felt like
I disagree completely. But I think that this book, like I said, it's the perfect pivot point where the world's opening up to us now. We really are like stepping into the more mystical aspects of it. A lot of truths are being revealed to us, and now we're off and running now.
I can tell you halfway through the third book, it's so good. So much more gets revealed. And you get to learn a lot of
I'm excited.
Dalinar's past.
I'm excited to either talk about the third book or listen to you talk about the third book.
It's going to be Carson. Carson's got.
I know that's his favorite
dibs
book.
on that one.
I figured that's his favorite book. I will ask, I think, you know, down the road, and fourth book, you're not even there yet. Fifth book, though, I think it needs to be kind of like a mega, get a few people together.
Okay, we can get you. If I get another mic, I can get Sean too.
That'd be great.
Hopefully, let me get this room set up because I definitely want to have it out there. sitting down.
down the road. Like obviously, we're a ways away from that.
I would say probably like August. It'll be done. But yeah, no, this book is amazing.
It is.
Solid 7.5, which to me is a very good score.
Oh, I never gave my rating. I guess I should.
What is it?
It is a 10. This is
Holy
my favorite.
shit.
This is my favorite
Book of all time?
This is my favorite fantasy book of all time.
Well, there you go. Don't let my opinion sway you away, even though I don't think a 7.5 is bad. And that just goes to show that different people, I mean, just because wasn't my favorite doesn't mean it can't be yours.
That's very true. It's my favorite. I think this is where Sanderson's at his best. I think there are other books that come close, including book 1, including book 3, including book 5. And there's going to be, you're going to love all of them. They're all great in their own ways. But yeah, this is, like I said, this is where it all comes together in the perfect way. I think it never moves at such a great, perfect pace. It never reveals as much character as that. This is where it all comes together. This is where you fall in love with the series, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now looking back, I'm like, I think what for me is having to adjust away from Kaladin and having to get to know other characters, which like looking back, I was like, I'm so glad that it focused on different characters.
Even though
like,
in the
like
first
Adolin.
book, the story is split between Shalon and Kaladin. And obviously there's other characters. Dalinar has, point of view, and so does Adolin. But, they're obviously side characters in that book. And then Shalon is kind of like the B plot in that book. This book is definitely more like 1A, 1B with Kaladin and Shalon. And so, like, going forward, that's how it kind of is for a lot of these books.
Yep.
And so it does take a little adjustment.
I mean, they're two of the best characters.
They're great. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you stopped by.
Me too, man. This was great. I was happy to do it.
Bridge 4, baby.
Bridge 4 forever. Journey before destination.